What's up, everyone? Kyle here. I am super excited to share that my audiobook version of Travel Tips is up now. You can find it on Audible, Libro.fm, and anywhere else that you get your podcasts. Go check it out and buy a copy. It also has 30 minutes, a little over 30 minutes of bonus commentary that isn't in the actual book, so that's a little added bonus. But go check it out. I appreciate all the support, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. All right, welcome everyone. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm your host, Kyle Rasmussen, and today I have with me Sue. Sue, how are you today?
I'm great, thanks, Kyle.
Good, glad to hear it. I'm very excited to talk to you today about your travels. I know you've had a lot of travel experience, and what really intrigued me when I came across your Instagram was it said over 40 solo female travel expert, which
Yeah.
I think is something that is kind of rare to see, and so I'm personally really curious about that. So I'm excited to hear your stories today.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for inviting me along. I'm happy to share my story.
Yeah, so I know, as we were setting this up, you mentioned to me how, your husband passed away, and then you kind of rediscovered traveling. So tell me about that and how you became this solo female travel expert.
Okay. So basically I started traveling back in my 20s, where well, way before like technology and anything like that. So I traveled solo because none of my friends were really available to come with me. And I think it's kind of where I found myself. I discovered who I was. I kind of came back feeling I could conquer the world, really, because you get, I feel, well, certainly for me, I got myself into a lot of situations and I got myself back out of them. Um, and it grew my confidence. It's kind of like if you can deal with that, you can deal with a lot of other stuff.
Hmm.
So I came back with the intention that I was going to just continue to travel and book more trips, but I just needed a job to get some money together before I did that.
Always
Um,
important.
yes, exactly. So my plan was to work for 3 months, get the money, go to India. I worked for 6 months. In the process, met my husband, um, and ended up staying where I was for 18 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
got married, and we were together for 18 years. So we traveled a lot together, but we only had like 25 days holiday a year, which I know is a lot more than you get in the States.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it was really limited as far as we're concerned. But we kind of like made the most of every single day, and had a lot of fun in the process. Um, so then back in 2014, unfortunately, he went into for heart surgery and didn't come back. So I was kind of like, well, how I try and explain it to people is it's like everything that you know about life and everything that you know about your future and expect to happen is just disappeared overnight. And I felt a lot of loss, but I also felt very lost. It was like I'd lost my right arm that had been there through everything for the last 18 years. And my friends and family rallied round, and they recognized my passion for travel. Everybody knew I loved traveling. And so the first year after I lost Terry, my husband, they invited me. I kept getting these phone calls saying, "Oh, I'm going skiing. Would you like to come? I'm going to Borneo to look for orangutans. Would you like to come? I'm doing all of these lovely trips that people wanted to do, and they invited me along, and I said yes to absolutely everything. Um, I think it was how I'm trying to explain it to people as well. It's like home is in normal life. Home is your sanctuary. It's where you're most yourself. But home was no longer that for me, and so traveling allowed me to kind of break up that first year where I'd be at home for 6 weeks or something trying to deal with what was happening, and then I'd go off and have friends and family around me to kind of like nurture me throughout those trips. And it was for me it was a way that helped me to deal with things, to get distracted, and just to be able to get through that first year, really. And then when I came to the end of that first year, I realized that firstly, the invites would at some point dry up, because there comes a point when you're not the topmost in everyone's mind to invite on these trips. And I also thought that I would always be doing the things that other people wanted to do and not the things that I wanted to do. So I decided it was kind of time to start taking control again, I guess. And I created a list. So it was effectively a bucket list. But the whole idea of a bucket list is things to do before you kick the bucket, or things to do before you die. And that was a little too close to home to me. So for a long time, I had a list of 117, quite specific. My list of things is all I called it. And a lot of it was based around travel. Some of it wasn't, and some of it was very basic, like swimming a mile or making a pavlova with my grandma's recipe and stuff like that. But a lot of it was kind of like huge things that I wanted to do, and a lot of them were travel based. And I effectively used that as a roadmap for the next few years, always looking for, well, what else is on my list, and what can I do next. And as I say to a lot of people, it's kind of the travel that I did in those next kind of 4 or 5 years, I guess, helped me to find my way back to myself. It gave me the chance to breathe and to grieve and to heal, and to really kind of find out who I was again. After I found myself the first time, I then was part of a couple for 18 years. And then I came out of that, and it's really I think just doing it on my own forced me into those situations again, and really made me thrive.
Yeah. Well, first, I gotta say, I'm sorry that you've had to go through all of that.
Thank you.
I can't imagine, just like you said, like having your right arm kind of ripped off, sort of thing. You don't wish that on anyone. I'm curious, I think it sounded like it really helped to not necessarily lean on family and friends, but keep yourself busy and doing something to get your mind off of it and just think about other things.
Yes, I'm a master of the power of distraction. So so going out and doing other things and seeing, I kind of have this belief, and I saw it in a friend of mine who I went to Vietnam with last year, that when you travel, and I think particularly when you travel alone, it's like mindfulness on steroids, because it's everything you do requires so much concentration, that from just finding something to eat, to tasting something completely different, to deciding where you're going to go, to even crossing the road, particularly somewhere like Saigon in Vietnam, kind of everything you do requires so much concentration that it helps you to just be really present. And I think that helps to just clear your mind of all of this other stuff that is going on, and can help you to kind of really make some life-changing decisions, or to deal with a lot of stuff, which is obviously what I was doing at the time, and still am to a certain degree,
Yeah, I think you put that really well. I think especially like in a country where you don't speak the language and it's very different from what you're used to, your senses are all on overload. You have to be very in the moment and present.
Absolutely.
I think that's therapeutic and also challenging, and helps you kind of grow and fortify your mind as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how is your your travel journey over these last few years? How has it kind of changed and evolved as time has gone on?
Oh, well, I have this whole different. It's interesting because I was examining a while back about how I've how I travel and how the travel that I've done has changed through the decades. So I'm in my 50s now. And I know when I was in my 20s, it was all about meeting people, and everything was budget, everything was backpacking. It was the cheapest room I ever stayed in was £1.20 a night, which is
Oh my
kind
gosh.
of, yeah, $1 a night. Yeah, dorm room in Indonesia. But it was everything was as cheap as you could possibly get it. And I enjoyed meeting loads of new people. So that was kind of my 20s. And then when I moved into my 30s, that was when I was with my husband. So then I was earning enough money to do things in a very short trip. So we'd cover a lot of ground. We'd only stay places for a few days, but it was when things went up in terms of how much I was spending on my travel, and just the things that I was doing. When you're in a relationship, or when you're with someone who else you're traveling with, everything's a compromise. So some things will be what you want to do, other things will be what other people want to do. And then so when I next started on this solo travel adventure, I was in my mid 40s when I lost Terry. And it's kind of I've now embraced the whole idea of slow travel. And I take my time, and where everyone else would go away for, I don't know, maybe a week, 2 weeks, I really want to get into the nitty gritty of a place. And so I'll stay for a month.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm lucky to be able to do that. That's yeah, very fortunate for my part. But also I kind of look for activities and things that I want to do in a place that will keep me active and will keep me engaged. So initially it was about meeting people as I went. So I did things like I went to Cuba to learn Spanish and lived there for 2 weeks in Havana, learning Spanish. I learned to sail and went did a sailing regatta. I volunteered at a wildlife sanctuary in Namibia. So it's kind of like everything almost has a purpose to it, and I just take my time. And I kind of do quite a lot of budget. I prefer to stay in more local areas. I'm not big on resorts. I find resorts are kind of firstly a bit impersonal. And so I like to stay more local places, but not so much the hostels anymore. I think I'm not that I have stayed in a lot of hostels, and not that sometimes I don't stay in places that are very like a hostel, but it's not all about the cheapest room and the cheapest bed I can get anymore. It's kind of like where I feel most comfortable is locally owned places, usually small places. I like bed and breakfast type of accommodation, or bed without the breakfast. Yeah, and so that I think is kind of how I travel more now. I have a purpose. I'll stay for a long time and kind of like try and make it as much of a local experience as I can.
Yeah, I love that. I think to truly understand a place, you got to take that extra time and really get into the nitty-gritty, like you said. Do you before you go on these trips, like to Cuba, do you kind of research ahead of time and say, okay, these are sort of the things that I want to do, or these are the cultural things that I want to learn about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I always start with the big picture. I kind of have a look at how long does it take me to do. I read up on everything. Well, a little bit. I probably don't do as much research as I probably should.
Yeah.
But I do the main things. So I look at how long is it going to take for me to properly understand a place and to enjoy it in the way that I enjoy it. And that will be my start and end point. And then I'll have an idea about the kind of areas I want to visit, and maybe 3 or 4 key things that I want to do while I'm there. But then I actually do quite a lot of research while I'm on my trip. I'll often have all my accommodation booked, just because I like to know where I'm going and I like to know where I'm staying. And I think particularly for a solo traveler, I think location is key. So I have very clear ideas about the kind of places I want to stay, and it's generally more about location as well. And then I do a lot of it on the go. So I'll arrive in somewhere, and so for example, recently I was in Canada. So I arrived in Canada. I found in Banff, let's say I was in Banff for a week. I found the tourist information center on the first day, and then I just asked loads of questions. I was like, where should I be going? How do I get there? What do I need to do when I'm there? What are the places not to miss? Where do you recommend eating? Kind of like I just offloaded all of these questions. And so from there, I just got a plan of, right, okay, this I can't do on the buses don't go on this day, so I have to do it on this day, and then create a plan from there. So a lot of it I do on the hoof because I like to take local recommendations. But the big picture stuff I will always do before I leave.
Yeah, that's good. I always like asking, the locals, where's your favorite spot to eat, or
Exactly.
what to see, that sort of thing. 'Cause they're gonna know the real things that you need to do and see and try.
Precisely. Yeah. And often it's kind of like in anywhere that you recommend that maybe a lot of tourists don't go to, or isn't really on the tourist trap, and they can obviously often give you some real hidden gems.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious. So, traveling solo around the world, have you made a lot of friends in different parts of the world?
Yes, I have. I've made a lot of friends. Yeah, from various and a lot more. Do you know what? I think it sounds counterintuitive, but I genuinely believe I meet more people when I travel on my own. And I have friends all over the world. So I for example, I was in Canada, and I went to Toronto, and I met a girl I used to work with. I met two people who I met on yoga retreats, one of which I've since been away to Barbados with. And I met in Cuba, and I've met her in Iceland. And then I was in Vancouver, and I met one of the friends I made in Costa Rica. And then on Vancouver Island, I met one night with a friend of a friend who I met in Costa Rica. So it's given me a fantastic network around the world, actually. And I meet people all over the place, and sometimes they stick and they stay for a while. But I've done quite a few trips with other people that have stemmed from meeting them on my travels as well, because a lot of people know that I say yes to a lot of things, and B that I will generally be available, so that they often come to me, so, oh, do you fancy doing this? So one of them was recently, probably the most epic one was Bridget, who I met. She's German. I met her on a yoga retreat in Cuba. And we didn't necessarily really keep in touch. And then she'd seen on my life list that I publish on my blog, she'd seen that I wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So she got in touch with me and said, oh, do you fancy doing it? And do you want to do it in October? So this was just before the pandemic. So it was around my birthday. So I just turned 50. So it seemed a perfect way to celebrate turning 50, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, there you go.
So I hadn't seen her for maybe 18 months since we left Cuba. We met in Moshi at the bottom of Kilimanjaro. We spent 8 days, just the two of us, and obviously all our guides and porters and everything, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro together. She was the absolute perfect person to be doing it with. Then a week in Zanzibar, then went our separate ways. And although we're still in touch, and we keep saying one day we'll have another adventure together, because that was amazing, we don't really keep in touch on a regular basis. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, you don't have to be in each other's pockets. But yeah, she was the absolute. I've got friends that I've known for years and years and years who I don't think would have been as perfect a companion to do an adventure like that as Bridget was.
Yeah. What was that experience like, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro?
Oh, it was one of the hardest mental and physical challenges of my life. It's hard. Yeah. I think I rebelled a little bit, because it's one of those things that everybody says, oh, I know someone who did that, and they did it, and everyone always seems to know someone who made it, and therefore assumes that it's easy. But yeah, it's not easy at all. I got altitude sickness a couple of times, which was really not pleasant. And yeah, and it's that whole summit night. We went on a full moon, and it was yeah, we were woken up at 11 o'clock to start climbing at 12, and you're right in the snow line, and you climb up until sunrise. So we literally just reached the peak at sunrise, which was it was an amazing achievement, and kind of something I will never ever forget. But then you've got another hour until you get to like the proper peak. So you get to the summit, and then you have to go to the peak, which is another hour. Everything is very, very slow. But actually, the worst thing that no one ever tells you is then coming down is hard work.
Yeah. I don't think we ever realized that, you know, going down can be just as hard as going up.
Oh, it was relentless. I have a sense of humor about most things and an enthusiasm about pretty much everything, and I was losing both of them on the way down. me and my friend, we were in tears. It was all sorts, just find the camp. We just want to stop. Yeah, it's fairly relentless and boring, and you don't really have that same goal anymore. It's kind of yeah, hard work.
Well, I mean, dude, that's an amazing accomplishment, though. So kudos to you on that.
Oh, thank you. It was amazing. I would recommend anyone to do it, although some of my friends have said I really wanted to do it until I read everything you've written about it, and I'm not interested anymore. I'm like, oh, wasn't quite my intention.
That's funny. Yeah, so was that something that was on your list of
Yes.
things to do?
Yes, so that was on my original 117 list, and I'm sorry, I didn't actually say, I called it my life list in the end. So it went from my list of things to then I called it my life list, and it was more about my list to bring me back to life, as opposed to my list of things to do before I die. And I still have my list, and I still refer to it, and I'm still following things, but it's not as clear a focus and a roadmap as it was. But yeah, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro was one of those things, as was going to Machu Picchu and hiking the Inca Trail. And I did that when I was in Peru, and it was when I did that and I had to deal with the altitude and everything then, that I thought I actually don't want to be too much older before I do Kilimanjaro, that's for sure. Because they're physically demanding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you know, the Incan people did that. Have
you done
insane.
it?
No, I want to, but actually, coming up later this year, I'm going to Everest Base Camp.
Oh wow,
Would be. I'm definitely worried about the altitude sickness for that.
Yeah, if expect it to happen, and if it doesn't, then you've done really well. But take it slowly. That was the big thing about Kilimanjaro. It's you can go up in 5 days, but there are more people who fail doing that because of the altitude sickness, because your body doesn't have the time to adjust. Whereas we were kind of like, look, if we're going to do it, we want to give ourselves the best chance possible. So we did it in 8 days. But you just got to take it really slowly. There's no kudos in rushing it and then not being able to make it. But I've heard that Everest Base Camp is amazing, and I half thought about having it on my list. It's not on my list. So I wish you all the best of luck.
I'll send pictures.
Yes, please do.
So has that list got any shorter, or have you added more things over the years?
I kind of had a revamp of it after about 3 or 4 years, because I took a whole load of stuff off that I'd done, and then there were things that were on it that I then realized I didn't want to do. So I took stuff off, like I had originally riding an elephant, and then I heard all the things about the unethical behavior about riding elephants. I'm like, right, that can come straight off. And I've since heard about even bathing elephants is not a great thing. So it's kind of like those kind of things came off. Running a marathon, that I thought, nah, I'm not going to bother now. Those kind of things. But yeah, and I added other bits into it. So I think it's now about, although I've done more than I don't know, 30 things. I think it's now on about 90 something.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it was quite a focus. So when I wanted to volunteer somewhere, and I looked at volunteering, and then I thought, okay, which is a country I want to visit? Oh, Namibia's on the list. Can I volunteer in Namibia? Then I can tick 2 things off.
Yeah, that's smart.
So that's kind of how I worked it.
Yeah. I'm curious, was it hard when you revamped it to take things off that list?
Yes. Yeah, because you kind of, I think it's always hard because you put them on the list for a reason, and then kind of taking them off somehow feels that if you haven't achieved them, then you've kind of failed in a way. But I guess I really believe that I've been on this journey. It's kind of a cliche, but I really have since 2014. So for the last 18 years, it's been a journey, and what I want to do and how I approach life and travel and everything has evolved. So that's kind of why my life list was such a focus for me in probably those first 5 years. But now it's more kind of, I'll go to places because I want to go to them. They don't necessarily need to be on my list for me to feel. And everywhere I go, I'll find things that are unbelievable and amazing experiences that everybody should do when they're there, you know. But I wasn't aware of them when I put my list together, and I also don't believe that it should evolve too quickly.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, so I haven't revamped it for a while, actually. Maybe it's the end of the year is often when I do those kind of things.
Okay. Yeah. What are some things on that list now that that you're looking forward to checking off?
Okay, so one thing that's looming quite large for me at the moment is Antarctica.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it's the one continent that I haven't visited yet, and I'm kind of feeling that I realize after spending a month in Canada in March that I'm not a cold weather person. So I kind of think, okay, yeah, Antarctica is kind of like that one big elusive trip that's still there. I'm hoping to do that, hopefully maybe next year. I really want to go to Central America and Colombia, and that's kind of the next big trip I've got in my head. I'd like to go and kind of refine my Spanish a little bit more in one of those areas and travel through Central America. Another thing that's literally looming quite large with me at the moment is doing an hot air balloon trip, which I've never done. Yeah, but my niece is just kind of a third, I think, of the way through a big European trip, and she finishes in Cappadocia in Turkey around her birthday. So I've got a plan to go and meet her, take her on a hot air balloon, because I've never done one before. And obviously, if you're going to do one for the first time, it's got to be somewhere spectacular. And that's kind of on my list of, somewhere amazing to do a hot air balloon ride.
Yeah, that sounds amazing and a good excuse to go do it for sure.
Exactly. Well, once I heard she was there, I'm like, oh, that could fit nicely. Yeah. So they're kind of like the 3 big things that I've got in my head at the moment. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be other things before the end of the year. I stayed in an ice hotel when I was in Canada. That was a big thing to tick off my list, which was amazing.
What was that like? Was it really cold?
It was really cold. It was really cold. But it was an amazing experience, because I booked like a cheap room, because I thought, oh, just not that any of them are cheap, but you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I thought it's all about the experience. It doesn't matter where I sleep. It's about the experience. So I found my room, and it was kind of this box of ice with a bed in it. That was fine. And then it just turned out, I think this is what I say, the highs and lows of solo travel is they had this kind of Nordic spa area. So the whole thing is you can go and explore the ice hotel, but there are all these rules about how you can best stay warm when you're there. And one of them is warm your body up. So they have this spa area, but you have also a main hotel room. So the nervous thing for me was coming down through this busy hotel in my robe on my own, to then go out in the snow. I had none of the right clothing. I rarely have the right clothing to then get in the hot tub. And I was kind of watching out, hoping other people were there. And then I got there, no one was there, but this guy came and helped me, and he asked me what my room was. I told him, and then he said, okay, I've just given you an upgrade. And he says, and I think you'll love it. And I don't think that would have happened if I hadn't have been on my own. So it was the nervousness of walking through this big hotel, really busy hotel in a robe on my own, was the downside, but the upside was the upgrade. And it was just this stunning kind of like ice sculpted room that it was pretty magical, actually.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I think that's a good story that highlights the highs and lows that you go through traveling solo. I know I've definitely experienced both those highs and lows of when you're on your own. Sometimes it can be awkward or uncomfortable to be in a situation, but then you get some perks that you wouldn't get if you were in a group as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's stuff like people can't always do things for more than one person. And it's even going out and eating in a restaurant on your own is the numbers of times I've just walked past. I don't tend to go out in the evening when it's really busy, because I feel you kind of get better service and stuff and everything kind of in the afternoon. But it's very rare that you will join a queue and stay as one person in a queue. Normally you can bypass the whole thing and just go and sit down.
Yeah. There's definitely a pros and cons to any way that you travel.
Yeah. Totally.
So when did you become a travel coach?
So I got my certification at the end of last year. So during my 18-year career, I was in sales and sales training and sales management. And during that time, I did a lot of coaching. I had like 15 years coaching experience around careers and self-development and all sorts of stuff like that. So I always loved coaching and loved seeing the transformation that you create in people. And obviously, as we've talked about, I love travel. And then I found a travel coach network which combines the two, and it sounded like an opportunity too good to miss as far as I was concerned. So I took my certification, which took probably 3, maybe 4 months. I probably could have done it quicker, but I'm not very good at kind of self-learning. So I got my qualification. So I've been travel coaching now since then, which has been really interesting. So I've had a lot of fellow widows come along who are just kind of starting to get their heads around being on their own, wanting to travel to fulfill all of these ambitions, but a little bit nervous about it. So I'm trying to inspire other women who are in a similar position to me to help them to kind of find an adventure and find what they want. Because I believe that traveling alone, I don't always travel alone. I travel with friends and family still when often. But I think the whole idea of doing what you want to do and not having to wait for other people gives you a huge amount of freedom to be able to do whatever you want. So when I went to South America, for example, I originally went with my friend who wanted to do Argentina. So I was with her for two weeks doing that. But then it's kind of like she has to come back for work, and I'm like, right, I'm not just doing this. That meant I could carry on to Bolivia and then on to Peru, and I've got the confidence to do that. And I think that's the joy of solo travel, is it gives you this huge freedom to really have the confidence to go and tackle anything really on your own.
Yeah, definitely. The more you do it too, I feel like the more confidence you gain, and
Totally
you build up that experience. What was that like? Starting to find these other women who have lost spouses, and now are coming to you for travel coaching.
It's kind of it's made me realize I've kind of started to find my people, you know, because I've been blogging now. So I started my blog, which is Sue Where Why What. And I started that because I felt that I was able to travel on my own after all of this had happened to me later in life, probably not conventionally when a lot of people do it. And I thought, I can't be the only woman who is on her own later in life. I knew friends who were going through separations, and kind of like now with my age group, there's a lot of people whose kids are moving away and they're becoming empty nesters, you know. And I kind of thought, well, I've got the confidence to do this because I did it way back in my 20s, whereas not everybody would have this. So if I can help anybody to find the confidence and the inspiration that if I can do it, anyone can do it. So that's kind of why I started my blog. But when you're doing these things and you're starting this creation, I don't know if you find this with your podcast, you put it out there, and there's a lot of effort to try and find the right people for your voice and for your story. And it's when people then start to find you, and your message is resonating with other people, that it gives me this huge sense of I'm getting where I wanted to be. I feel I've got this thing which I think will benefit a lot of people, but there's so much noise out there that it's how do I get to the people that I think I can help. So when I've had chats with these women who have finally found me, and I believe I can help them, and I can see in them where I've been, you know, where how lost I felt and how stuck I felt, and how freed I became through travel, and through travel particularly on my own. And I'm not saying everybody has to travel on their own, they don't at all, it's not for everybody, but I believe it's given me the freedom. But I also believe that travel and just trying it, even just a couple of days before or after a trip, or going local, going away for a weekend on your own, or something like that, to just kind of get your juices flowing and see if you'd like to do that. So that's given me a huge sense of satisfaction, actually. And I believe there's a lot more women out there who are like me, maybe don't have the confidence that I can help. It's just finding the right channel to allow them to find me. I think that's probably where I'm coming from on it.
Yeah, definitely. And in my brief, when I looked at your website and blog and all of that, I mean, I think you're the perfect person to come to if I, have any questions, or, looking for any coaching. I mean, you got it all there. You got lots of great advice on there, and it's really inspiring, honestly.
Oh, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. It's been a labor of love for a very long time.
Yeah, well, I think it's always amazing to see, a passion come to life.
Yes.
I think that's one of the coolest things that you can do as a person, is find a passion and pursue it, and see what happens with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is my passion to kind of show people other places that they might not have thought about as well. And certainly I find that writing my blog, and I've got YouTube as well. So I've found a real love just this last year, I think, of just doing the videos when I am somewhere. And I feel like it's weird. I say it to people. I feel it's quite sad because I've got me and my GoPro and quite a long arm, and I take them everywhere, and it's like I'm taking a friend with me. And so it's kind of, but I love showing people different things that they can do, giving advice on what they can do when they're there, and maybe showing a different aspect and opening up part of the world that maybe they even haven't thought of before, or they thought of it but they weren't quite sure what was there, or something like that. I get quite excited by.
Yeah. What's maybe, I think it said you've been to 80 countries, is that right?
Yes, 80. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I've had a long time to do it.
What are maybe some hidden gem countries that people don't know much about?
Oh wow, I'm not sure if they're hidden gem. Well, I have to say I've spent quite a lot of time over the last few years down in the Caribbean.
Okay.
And so some of the islands around there, I mean, my favorite country in the world is Cuba, for starters. I love Cuba. It makes me feel alive every time I go there. But then there's also some of the smaller islands, like Grenada, for example. Less people go and visit Grenada, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. The people are amazing. It's I spent a couple of months, one in St. Lucia and one in Grenada. And I felt that in St. Lucia, there's so much tourism and people take it for granted. Whereas in Grenada, they kind of appreciate it more, but on a more even level. So in St. Lucia, when people say hello, it's kind of like they're saying hello because they want something from you. Whereas I very much felt in Grenada, when people said hello, they're just like that. They just want to say hello. They want to have a conversation. They might not know you, but they're interested in why you're there. And I found beautiful island, and just with some really lovely, friendly people. Similarly, in the Caribbean, Dominica was another one that just took me by surprise. It's not like any other. It doesn't have the beaches, and it's not all about those beautiful sandy beaches that you see in the Caribbean. But it's just stunning, very volcanic, with hot, like everywhere's got a boiling lake. I was taken up at one point, taken up into like the rainforest, and this guy was like, "Oh yeah, I've only ever taken like 50 people up here." And
Oh, wow.
me and my friend were the only two, and there was this tiny little it's like a hot spa overlooking the town in the middle of the rainforest with a hot waterfall coming down into it. And he was like, "Oh yeah, that's fed by the boiling lake." It's like, how does this stuff even work? And another thing, in Grenada, I did this hike to a place called Golden Falls, which is literally that. It's a gold waterfall. And there's a cold waterfall, which is the big one, and then you move next to it, literally just like 3 feet away, and you've got a hot waterfall.
Oh, wow.
And all the rocks are kind of like is yellow gold, and the water is yellow or gold because of the rocks it's flowing through. It's kind of amazing places like that. Oh, and then Puerto Rico. I know it's a much more visited country for North America, but I was 3 weeks there, and I barely heard another English accent. And the bioluminescence bays there just blew my mind. I don't know if you've ever experienced that at all. I certainly hadn't.
No, that's something that I've always wanted to see.
Oh, it's amazing. It's like you're going in a glass-bottomed kayak, and it's those sci-fi films where they go to warp speed, and all of a sudden all the stars are rushing past you. It's literally like that under your kayak.
Oh, weird.
And it's like lights coming from your oars. It was an amazing experience. Yeah. But closer to home, Iceland. I know it's quite commonly visited, but Iceland was amazing, but less so. Well, no, Reykjavik, Golden Circle, and everything. But I also went up north to a place called Akureyri, and some of the areas around there are like the landscapes and things are just amazing. And again, the people were fantastic. So that's close to home for me, is Iceland. I'd say that. To be honest with you, everywhere I go, I love.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, there aren't that many places I go and say, "No, I wouldn't bother."
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's just every place I think is unique, and
yes,
if you go in and just are there to just experience it and get to know it, I can really appreciate any place you go to.
Yeah, totally. And even Scotland, I didn't think there was much point in Scotland, just because I live so close to it in the UK. And then during lockdown, when we couldn't go anywhere else, me and my friend took a road trip up to Scotland and the Highlands and Islands, and it just blew me away. So much so that we went the year after as well and did like the North Coast 500 route all around the north coast of Scotland. and absolutely beautiful, and became one of my favorite countries. It's so stunning. And Ireland as well. I've got plans at the moment to kind of take my car over to Ireland and do the Wild Atlantic Way, which I've done a little section of, but again, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, wow. I feel like why I asked you about has your list gotten longer or shorter, because like when you're traveling, I feel like every time you go to a place, you hear of two or three more places, or you
Yes.
always find something else that you want to do. And so I feel like that list never really gets shorter.
No, it never gets shorter, but I'm also a believer that it's good to always have a reason to go back. So if I leave somewhere and if you hear about something but you can't quite make it there because you didn't know about it, and so your schedule doesn't allow for it and all that kind of stuff, I do have this whole feeling of, right, okay, that's fine, because it gives me a reason to come back, and that's always a good thing. You never want to have 100% seen everything.
Yeah, I like that. Well, Sue, any other travel stories you want to share? Anything about your travel coaching, or just anything in general?
Not necessarily. I mean, I have travel stories coming out of my ears. I have lots that I could share. But I think from what I was saying about where I'm going with my travel coaching, I hear a lot from particularly from the women that I'm trying to serve, of I want to travel, but I just don't know where to start. And so I'm going to be developing a course over the next couple of months to really help anyone who, and it's not necessarily, obviously there will be quite a heavy element about solo travel, but like I've said before, it's not just about that. It's about kind of finding your own adventure, I think. And so I'm literally going to be putting together something which is like, this is where you start when you have no idea. And I'm planning for it to be a very practical course that by the end, everybody has something booked, or starting to book, or in the plan, or in the diary, or something. So it's kind of, I want to cover everything that you need to know before you go, based on all of those lessons that you and I and everybody else who's traveled extensively has picked up over, for my case, 30 years, and I'm still learning new ones.
Yeah, I like that. I think sounds really exciting, and I think is a great resource for people that are looking to travel. So,
thank you.
Where can people find your travel coaching at?
So my blog is Sue Where Why What. So lots of people can't remember that. So it's Sue. Where do you go? Why do you go there? And what do you do when you're there? Is how I try and structure everything. So, and I'm on all platforms. So my YouTube is Sue Where Why What. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, basically everything. Sue Where Why What. And anywhere that people like to hang out, go and find me, and connect and have a look and see if there's anything you can get from that. And by all means, get in touch. I offer 15-minute discovery calls too, to see if travel coaching is something that's for you. So that's an opportunity for anyone who wants to sign up and join my journey.
Yeah, I love it. I've enjoyed following you and looking through your website, your Instagram. You got some amazing pictures on your Instagram.
Thank you very much.
Well worth the follow and checking out what you got going on. I haven't had a chance to read too much of your blog yet, but from what I have read, I've enjoyed it as well.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think everyone should go check it out. But Sue, it was great chatting with you. Thank you for sharing your journey. I know some of that may be hard to share, but I think it's really inspiring for me and for the listeners, and so I'm really glad that you took the time today.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Yeah, of course. Well, you have a great rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere around the world soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. You too. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always check out every episode on Spotify, Anchor, YouTube, and now Amazon Music as well. Just search for Our Travel Experiences on any of those platforms and it will pop up. You can also find everything all in one place on my website, ourtravelexp.com. And if you want to see my travel pictures as well as travel pictures from guests on the show, you can check them out on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. And if you want to share your own pictures on the Instagram page or be a guest on the podcast, you can message me via that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to see your pictures and hear about your travel experiences, so please send them my way. And if that isn't enough for you, make sure to check out my weekly YouTube show, From Around the World Fridays. Every Friday, I'm taking 5 to 10 minutes to answer questions from listeners, share some souvenirs that I bought over the years, share my postcards over the years that I've accumulated, or share videos and pictures from one particular city or country that I visited, and so much more. So check it out, guys. You won't be disappointed, and make sure you go subscribe to that as well. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you somewhere around the world soon.